Hey, Liron here. If you want to achieve truly loose watercolor paintings and specifically cityscapes, let me show you the thing that makes all the difference, and it's not necessarily what you think. So look, I have a bit of paint in my brush, and all I'm doing is sketching out the scene. It's a very simple sketch. I only care about, just like the thumbnail exercise, the big shapes. So we have the buildings and where they begin, and the shadow on the buildings. We do not have all these ladders, all these windows, all these classic, beautiful New York, Manhattan architecture shapes. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is those big shapes. So let's get to it. Let's get to painting. I have a very interesting mix of blue here. It's a phthalo, an ultramarine, and a bit of white, permanent white, or any white will do really. It's a white watercolor. And I just love to use it to take the edge a bit off the blue so that it looks a little more interesting and a little less generic. A lot of blues that I see you using out there are quite generic looking. It's just an untouched French ultramarine. Let's make them interesting here, okay? Now, I'm not necessarily going for a phthalo color. This isn't like a tropical scene, but this is close enough to what I'm after. Okay, so now that we're done with the sky, my next focus is the buildings. Before we even get to that beautiful rich shadow, let's just block in the buildings. Very simple. Building on the left, quite a warm, reddish, kind of ochre, terracotta, whatever you want to call this color. I love this red color. We don't have enough of it here. Where I live, I would love to see more of it. But in any case, it's a very simple mix, and it might seem strong. It's not strong, and you'll see me strengthening it a little bit later on. And this is a quick process. We're going to take like 10 minutes of video footage from a 20-minute painting process. So next up, that building next to it, it is a warm kind of yellow. So you could actually use yellow just like I'm doing here. Add a bit of yellow to the mix, make it more dominant, and keep going from there. Okay, people always wonder, like, what is that yellow? What is that warm wall color? Just use some kind of a warm that is more yellow biased, and you'll be good to go. You don't have to overthink this, especially not at this stage, by the way. So as for the next building, once again, we're hit with the red, but look at this beautiful kind of turquoise pattern of where the windows are. My way of capturing it is a bit of blue, a bit of yellow, and a bit of white, believe it or not, because it has this beautiful, interesting brightness to it. Now, everything we're doing at this point is just preparation. It's preparation for the future. Notice also how I unskewed a bit of the perspective, but that's fine. That's a different matter. I don't want to really go into drawing and the composition here. But in any case, a very simple, straightforward preparation for later. Whatever becomes of this will become of it. It doesn't really matter, okay? This is just the gist of the process. That's what matters. Now, a bit of warmth once again for that corner building, corner of the painting that is. And with that, believe it or not, we're done with the core kind of basic layer of the buildings, okay? What's the next big shape? And I'm going to remove the tape and kind of fill in those holes because I I have time. For the ones on the sky and the left, I just don't bother for now. I'll do it later. But yes, what's the next biggest shape you're seeing? It is that big shadow. So why not, instead of struggling to paint all the details in the windows and everything else, just paint that shadow in one go. So with shadow colors, I have been really observing this, and it feels to be very dominant by this neutral violet, not violent. But have in mind that the shadow color is always affected by the local color of the surface. So if the building is red, the shadow will be a little more red. If the building is yellow, it's going to be a little more yellow. So mind that and add a bit of red maybe to where the red is. Now, one part I'm fascinated by is that transition from shadow to light. And because this wash is still small for the shadow, I have time. I can begin taking care of the in-between and making sure I have some interesting transitions there, okay? I'm not gonna do this for the entirety of this wash for the shadow, but I will do it whenever and wherever I can to create some interest right this instant. And later on, I can develop it into more complete details, right? Later on, I can do a bunch of things with this. But you see how I'm varying the gray? started with a violet red, then moved on to a bit of a warm brown, and then I'm going into the red again because this is an interesting red building. And while I have this wash still manageable and kind of controlled, I can start introducing some wet in wet, and these are for details that are hinted. Of course, you won't start painting each and every window. That's a completely different approach that you can take. You'll have to be a little more detailed usually with your sketch. You'll have to take your time a bit more. This is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is making the most out of wet paint, okay? And that means it's rough and it's a raw painting, relatively speaking, but it also captures the sense of light in a very interesting way that only watercolor really can do. And it catches the essence of the scene. Already you can feel a bit of a sense of light and shadow. Already you can kind of see what this scene is all about. And that's what makes all the difference in watercolor painting. It is the large shapes, the large composition, the large visual idea that takes precedence over specific details. When you fall into the trap of rendering and re-rendering and fixing and rearranging the small details, that's where overwork happens. Overwork does not happen from overmixing your paints necessarily. It does not happen from small details necessarily. It happens when you don't understand what matters for a pleasing painting. And what matters is not what I'm doing right now, it's everything I did up to this point. Everything I'm doing right now, that's my visual language. Look at this. I'm going to use some rough kind of texture of the paper to achieve these steps, these very classic New York steps. Fire escape, if you will. That's my handwriting. That's how I add the details. But what makes this anchored in the real light and shadow details is everything that came before it. Okay? Now, with that said, those details can definitely enhance the scene. So what are we seeing here really when we're looking at this? What are we truly seeing? We're seeing windows. We're seeing all sorts of interesting architectural details. We're seeing all sorts of interesting colors in the picture. I'm doing my best to capture as many of these as I can up until the point where my painting actually tells me, enough, any more details and you're going to ruin it. Just like we did before, I'm also making sure to anchor the colors as much as I can in what's originally there, meaning these shadows right now that I'm putting in are going to be a little warm because they're on a warm building. Okay, now this will happen inadvertently just by painting with watercolor. You're painting transparently. So you're painting over an existing wash. Some of that wash is going to show, but you have to account for it and not just trust that it will be enough. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see with beginners is your shadows aren't talking to one another and they look detached. Why is that? Because a lot of people default to painting with just a black for the shadow, or worse yet, just a confused palette, and there is no real rhyme or reason to it. And unless your intuition and experience support it, for the most part, you're just going to kind of mess up the overall feel by doing that. So your shadows, just the colors don't feel like they belong there, right? Especially if you just rely on a black color and kind of hope that the color underneath will show a bit and the harmony will be preserved. Often you end up with shadows that just feel detached and unrelated. So don't do that. Have in mind, what's the color of the shadow based on the thing it is on, the local color of the building. And anyone can look at a building and ask themselves at least this question. Is it a red? Is it a yellow? Is it a blue? Is it a warm? Is it a cool? And whatever your gut tells you and whatever your instinct tells you and whatever your color swatches, if you swatch them, tell you, just go with that, right? You can't really confuse a blue with a red. What you can confuse is mild temperature changes, which is why we're always focused on the overall picture. What's the overall picture here? Shadow muted, buildings saturated, sky blue, right? So that's what I started with. That's the foundation. So that later on you don't have to struggle with the specificity of the colors, okay? I hope that makes sense. Now, I'm bringing in a bit more strength to those buildings because remember what I said. The first wash that we did for these, you can't really go too dark with these because they're just, of course, they're going to dry lighter. And you can go too dark, to be perfectly honest, but these buildings are darker than the sky. So you have to really, really, really push to mess this up, okay? So I wanted another push. Now, again, I told you the in-between fascinates me. Look at some of these windows that are in the shadow but still catch the light. I love showing that kind of a thing. That is an effect that I personally really enjoy. And while I have this paint with me, I'm just going to throw it in wherever I see it, right? And then we're going to switch over to a more dark format for details. And look at these warm kind of details over the more neutral ones. It really compounds and adds a layer of interest that you won't get any other way, really. Some details, small details on the windows there, just to show the frames and the glass, just to give it a bit of, to anchor it, right? And this to me is a perfect small study for a more detailed piece I hope to make of this. Like, this scene is just beautiful, and I would love to paint it more full size. So what you're getting here is essentially the raw, direct version that is very deliberate still. There's a purpose to everything here. There's a purpose to the shapes. There's a purpose to the values, to the colors. The overall composition and idea are there. And that is the thing that really makes a difference in watercolor painting. So I want to share with you the finished scanned painting. Remember, it's not about the small details. It's not about being accurate. It's not about the small inaccuracies even. It's about the bigger thing. If you enjoyed this kind of a video, would really appreciate if you check out the frustration-free watercolor course. If you want to paint loose watercolors, I have made a course just for you. And so many people struggle with it. It will help you with the shadow colors. It will help you with the composition. It will help you with the flow. It will help with everything. If you're new to watercolor painting, or if you are not new but you're kind of struggling with the same problems, just click the first link in the description box below. Join the frustration-free watercolor course. Go through it. It's like 20-something lessons, very information-packed. There are some beginner, intermediate, and high-level demos there. So I highly encourage you to check that out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.